Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Kate, this is Diamond Painting and Dr. Pepper, and welcome to week 3 of Fairy Tales and Folklore. I can't believe it's week 3 already. February is passing by so fast. I hope you guys are enjoying the event so far. If you haven't had a chance to check out week 2's video over on Katie's channel, please go check that out. It was all about Hades and Persephone for Valentine's Day. It was so fun to listen to that myth and the origins and all the different variations that are out there. Perfect for Valentine's Day. I hope you guys were able to check that out. For this week's video, I wanted to do something a little bit different. If you're participating in Fairy Tales and Folklore, then I assume that you, like Katie and I, appreciate storytelling and stories of all kinds, especially fairy tales. And so I'd like to talk a little bit about some recommendations for books that fall into this theme and maybe give you something new to consider reading. I'm going to talk both about books that are retellings of fairy tales or mythology, and some books that are written in a style that makes them feel like you're reading a fairy tale. Somewhere in there, I'll also talk about who won last week's giveaways and tell you how you can enter for this week's giveaways. So grab yourself a snack or a drink and sit down with your project, and I will regale you with some recommendations for new stories you might want to read or listen to. The first category I'm going to start off with is retellings of fairy tales or mythologies. I have read fewer of this version than I have of the one that's more fairy tale inspired. So I'm going to start off with the ones that I have read and then give you some recommendations that I've heard about but haven't yet read. That said, the first author I'm going to recommend is Marissa Meyer. She has written fairy tale retellings set in the future that are kind of sci-fi mixed with fairy tales called the Lunar Chronicles. So Cinder is the first book of the Lunar Chronicles series, and its description goes like this. Humans and androids crowd the raucous streets of New Beijing. A deadly plague ravages the population. From space, a ruthless lunar people watch, waiting to make their move. No one knows that Earth's fate hinges on one girl. Cinder, a gifted mechanic, is a cyborg. She's a second-class citizen with a mysterious past, reviled by her stepmother and blamed for her stepsister's illness. But when her life becomes intertwined with the handsome Prince Kai's, she suddenly finds herself at the center of an intergalactic struggle and a forbidden attraction. Caught between duty and freedom, loyalty and betrayal, she must uncover secrets about her past in order to protect her world's future. So that's just the first book in this series, and it centers around mostly a Cinderella retelling. The other books in this series expand on the world and also bring in other fairy tales to add into the universe, and they all interact with each other. So book 2 is a retelling of Red Riding Hood, book 3 is a retelling of Rapunzel, and book 4 is a retelling of Snow White, sort of, but it's told from the lens of a futuristic sci-fi kind of story, and it weaves all these characters together in one big narrative, and it's really fun. I highly recommend those. They are a bit YA, young adult, but if you don't mind that, they're a really great read. The other 3 books by Marissa Meyer that I'll mention are Heartless, Gilded, and The House of Fear. Heartless is based on Alice in Wonderland, but it's the backstory of the Queen of Hearts. Gilded is one that I haven't read yet, but it's on my list. This one is a retelling of the story of Rumpelstiltskin. And then The House of Fear is a retelling of an old fairy tale called Bluebeard. This one just recently released, so I haven't read it yet either, but I'm very excited to. Bluebeard is one of those really kind of more creepy fairy tales, so I'm excited to see how Marissa Meyer twisted this into a more modern version of the fairy tale. So yeah, that's Marissa Meyer. I highly recommend her. I've read her work and it's wonderful. The next author I want to recommend does retellings more of Greek mythology rather than fairy tales. And that's Madeline Miller. I'm currently reading a book called Circe by her, and it is a retelling of the daughter of the god Helios with a nymph, and her name is Circe. And it tells the story of her banishment and how she gets involved with the dealings of other gods and goddesses during her lifetime. We're not all the way through it yet, so I'm really excited to see where it goes. But Madeline Miller has also written several other Greek mythology retellings, including Galatea, Song of Achilles, and Heracles' Bow, which is a novella. So if you like Greek mythology, this might be a good series for you to check out. And they're all standalones as far as I'm aware. They're not like books that you have to read in any particular order. So if there's one that interests you more than the others, I think you can just pick it up and read it. And now we're on to some of the authors whose works I haven't personally read yet, but they definitely have been recommended to me as great examples of fairy tale retellings. The first one is Robin McKinley. She has a series called the Folktale series. The first two books, Beauty and Rose Daughter, are both about Beauty and the Beast. And the third book, Spindle's End, is about Sleeping Beauty. From what I can tell, I think these are more of a traditional retelling that kind of tells the tales in their original time period type setting, unlike the Lunar Chronicles, which tells the stories in the future and kind of takes a lot of liberties with them so that they almost tell a whole new story with just nods to those fairy tales. Whereas the Madeline Miller books are more on-the-nose retellings of the fairy tales, and I think that's what these books by Robin McKinley are. But then you have the Fractured Fables series by Alex E. Harrow, and those are more of, again, a new take on these fairy tales. So she writes two books in this series. The first one is called A Spindle Splintered, and that is a Sleeping Beauty retelling as well. And the second one is A Mirror Mended, which is a retelling of Snow White. But I'm going to read you the descriptions of these because they definitely sound a little bit different than what you'd expect from a retelling of these fairy tales. So for A Spindle Splintered, it's Zinnia Gray's 21st birthday, which is extra special because it's the last birthday she'll ever have. When she was young, an industrial accident left Zinnia with a rare condition. Not much is known about her illness, just that no one has lived past 21. Her best friend Charm is intent on making Zinnia's last birthday special, with a full Sleeping Beauty experience, complete with a tower and a spinning wheel. But when Zinnia pricks her finger, something strange and unexpected happens, and she finds herself falling through worlds with another Sleeping Beauty, just as desperate to escape her fate. And then A Mirror Mended is the second book in this duology, and it continues the tale. I won't read you the blurb just in case you don't want any spoilers. I would consider it a mild spoiler, but it looks very fun, and I kind of like this more tongue-in-cheek take on a fairy tale retelling. And then the last author that I want to recommend in this category is one that I've read a book by her, but I haven't read any of her fairy tale retellings. That is T. Kingfisher. She has quite a few. There's Hemlock and Silver, which is a Snow White retelling. Bryony and Roses is a Beauty and the Beast retelling. Thornhedge is a Sleeping Beauty retelling. The Raven and the Reindeer is a retelling of The Snow Queen by Hans Christian Andersen, which is the same fairy tale that Frozen is based upon, loosely. And The Seventh Bride, another Bluebeard retelling. And reading the descriptions of these, it seems like she has changed them quite a bit to be more her own interpretations in her own kind of worlds. For instance, I'll read you the description for Hemlock and Silver, her Snow White retelling. Healer Anya regularly drinks poison, not to die, but to save, seeking cures for those everyone else has given up on. But a summons from the king interrupts her quiet, herb-obsessed life. His daughter Snow is dying, and he hopes Anya's unorthodox methods can save her. Aided by a taciturn guard, a narcissistic cat, and a passion for the scientific method, Anya rushes to treat Snow, but nothing seems to work. That is, until she finds a secret world hidden inside a magic mirror. This dark realm may hold the key to what is making Snow sick. Or it might be the thing that kills them all. So as you can see, this introduces a whole new character and a whole new way that the fairy tale goes, but it reuses some of the themes and characters from the original fairy tale, and I think the rest of her fairy tale retellings are like that too. I'm really excited to read these at some point. Like the original fairy tales these were based on, some of these sound like they could get pretty dark, which I'm okay with, but not everyone is, so make sure you read the descriptions before you go into anything blindly. So those are all of the authors I wanted to recommend for the fairy tale retellings section of this video. I'm going to take a break now and talk a little bit about last week's giveaways and who were the winners for those, and also discuss what we're going to be giving away this week and how you can enter. Okay, so last week in Katie's video, there were 4 prizes up for grabs. The first one is a KC Ventures $15 gift card, and the winner for this one is Kristen. Congratulations, Kristen. Next, we have a $20 gift card to Crafts with Crashly, and the winner for that one is Anne. Congratulations, Anne. Then we have our winner for the $50 gift card to Diamond Art Club, and that is Stephanie. Congratulations, Stephanie. Lastly, we have our $20 gift card to Shire Shenanigans, and the winner for that is Beth. Congratulations, Beth. If you were one of our winners, hang tight. We will be in touch with you in the next few days to talk about getting your prizes to you. This week, there are 4 prizes up for grabs. Starting with the $15 gift card to KC Ventures Co. This shop makes beautiful themed diamond painting trays, cover minders, and trinket trays, including this beautiful hot pink set that they themed especially for fairy tales and folklore. And during the month of February, you can use code FairyTales15 to get 15% off your order if you purchase from them. By the way, I'll make sure to link to our sponsor's document down in the description, so please click that if you would like links to any of these shops. The second gift card we're giving away this week is $20 to Carissa's Craft Corner. They have also made a beautiful trinket tray for this event, along with a Putty Pal holder, and you can get both at their website, which will be linked below. And if you'd like 10% off your order, you can use the code FAIRY when you check out. The next prize is an event-themed gift box from Blue Ridge Waxworks. This includes a 6-pack of wax tarts, 1 package of diamond pen hard wax that matches the scent profile, and an event cover minder. If you'd like an extra 10% off your order at Blue Ridge Waxworks, you can use the code ENCHANTED26 when you order. Lastly, we'll be giving away a $50 gift card to Diamond Art Club. If you'd like to enter for these prizes, please make sure you filled out the Google form that's linked in the description. You only have to fill it out once for the entire event, but that will allow us to easily get your prize to you if you win. Also, make sure to double check the entry form for other important details and giveaway rules that are included in there. Once you've filled out the entry form, please leave a comment on this video, including the keyword story, in order to enter for this week's prizes. Make sure and incorporate the word into a sentence and don't mention giveaway, just so we don't trigger any kinds of bots. You have until Wednesday the 25th at 11:59 p.m. Pacific to enter for this week's prizes, and winners will be announced next week in Katie's video for week 4. I'd like to once again thank all of our sponsors for making this event possible and making such lovely themed goodies for us to enjoy. Okay, now I'd like to talk about some books I want to recommend that have that fairy tale vibe but aren't retellings of specific traditional fairy tales. The first one is called The River Has Roots by Amal El Motar. This is a pretty short story that for me was really reminiscent of Celtic culture. It felt very Irish to me for some reason. I loved this one. I listened to it on audiobook, and if you are okay with audiobooks, I would 100% recommend doing that for this one because there is a lot of singing and music involved, and it's really enchanting and beautiful. The description for this one is, "Oh, what is stronger than a death? Two sisters singing with one breath." In the small town of Thistleford, on the edge of Fairy, dwells the mysterious Hawthorne family. There they tend and harvest the enchanted willows and honor an ancient compact to sing to them in thanks for their magic. None more devotedly than the family's latest daughters, Esther and Isabel, who cherish each other as much as they cherish the ancient trees. But when Esther rejects a forceful suitor in favor of a lover from the land of Fairy, not only the sisters' bond, but also their lives will be at risk. And while that one definitely feels like it takes place sometime in the past, this next one is more of a modern fairy tale. It's called The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. This is one of my favorite books I read last year, and it's one of the most beautifully written stories that I've ever read. I would highly recommend it if you like things that just feel kind of magical and otherworldly and dreamlike. That's the feeling it gave me. The description is, Zachary Ezra Rollins is a graduate student in Vermont when he discovers a mysterious book hidden in the stacks. As he turns the pages, entranced by tales of lovelorn prisoners, key collectors, and nameless acolytes, he reads something strange, a story from his own childhood. Bewildered by this inexplicable book and desperate to make sense of how his own life came to be recorded, Zachary uncovers a series of clues, a bee, a key, and a sword, that lead him to a masquerade party in New York, to a secret club, and through a doorway to an ancient library hidden far below the surface of the earth. What Zachary finds in this curious place is more than just a buried home for books and their guardians. It is a place of lost cities and seas, lovers who pass notes under doors and across time, and of stories whispered by the dead. The next book I want to recommend is one that you might already be familiar with, but maybe in a different format, and that's Howl's Moving Castle by Diana Wynne Jones. I think a lot of people might have seen the Ghibli movie based on this book, but I'm not sure how many people have read the book itself, and there are some key differences in the stories that I think make it worth it to both watch the movie and read the book, just because it's two different experiences. I found the book incredibly charming and was surprised to find when I was reading it that there's tie-ins inside the story with real-life places, which I was not expecting. Here's the little write-up on this one. Sophie has the great misfortune of being the eldest of 3 daughters, destined to fail miserably should she ever leave home to seek her fate. But when she unwittingly attracts the ire of the Witch of the Waste, Sophie finds herself under a horrid spell that transforms her into an old lady. Her only chance at breaking it lies in the ever-moving castle in the hills, the wizard Howl's castle. To untangle the enchantment, Sophie must handle the heartless Howl, strike a bargain with a fire demon, and meet the Witch of the Waste head-on. Along the way, she discovers that there's far more to Howl and herself than first meets the eye. Most of these recommendations so far have been on the lighthearted side of the fairy tale kind of spectrum. But there is one that I can recommend that is more of a horror type story, and that is The Book of Lost Things by John Connolly. I read this one a couple years ago, and while it wasn't my favorite, I do think it would appeal to some people who do like that kind of darker end of things, which I also like kind of dark fairy tales. This one just had some things in it that made me uncomfortable for other reasons. There's definitely some fat shaming in there and other views like that I don't agree with. That is the reason why I rated it a bit lower. But I still think it's an interesting story and an interesting kind of take on a dark fairy tale. High in his attic bedroom, 12-year-old David mourns the death of his mother, with only the books on his shelf for company. but those books have begun to whisper to him in the darkness. Angry and alone, he takes refuge in his imagination and soon finds that reality and fantasy have begun to meld. While his family falls apart around him, David is violently propelled into a world that is a strange reflection of his own, populated by heroes and monsters, and ruled by a fated king who keeps his secrets in a mysterious book, the Book of Lost Things. This book definitely has some nods to established fairy tales. There's a Snow White type character with her 7 dwarves. There's a huntsman, things like that. There's even a Sleeping Beauty type part of this book, so it fits really nicely into this genre, even if it does add a lot of things that are its own. And I love going into a story not knowing whether the things that the character is experiencing are really happening or if it's just all in their imagination, and this was a book like that. Now, I realize that not everyone has the budget to go out and buy new books, and if you're looking for something to consume during this event and any of these are going to be too long of a wait to obtain from your library or Libby app, I can go ahead and link you to a free quote-unquote audiobook of a short story written by my son that he gave me for Mother's Day last year and that I recorded in audiobook form just for you guys. Huge disclaimer here that I am not a professional audiobook narrator. I've never done anything like that before, but considering this is not a published work, this was really the only way to offer it in a digestible form. So if that's something you're interested in, please see the link in the description for the unlisted video here on YouTube that is the full and complete audiobook of Erico by F.M. Luther. This story definitely has a fairy tale vibe to it as well. Here's a little write-up about it. At 18 years old, everyone has the option to take the Queen's right. The trials are deadly, but should they be completed by any person, the Queen will grant them one wish. Erico's 3 brothers each failed the trial. Now it's Erico's turn. And that, my friends, is all I have for you this week. Thank you for letting me indulge in my love of stories and books to recommend to you guys. And if you haven't read anything in a while, maybe try one of these and see if it sparks that love within you again for all things storytelling. Reading is the perfect hobby to have alongside diamond painting, especially if you listen to audiobooks, so I highly recommend it. Good luck if you enter this week's giveaways. Please do check out the link in the description to our sponsor shops. And make sure to look out for Katie's Week 4 video next week on Saturday. And I will DAC you all in my next video. Bye, everybody.